Well, greetings, fans of the heavy stuff. This is Music is a Journey. I'm Peter. If you are new to my channel, well, thank you so much for stopping by. And if you are a return viewer, well, hello again. Nice to see you. Well, okay, I can't see you. You can see me, but hopefully I will see your comments. Anyway, this is a challenge put forth by George G's Room of Rock, if I got that correctly. And quite honestly, I simply haven't had a chance to watch the original video yet, which is unusual. I always like to watch the original video before I make mine. The only problem is that I didn't expect I would be making my video tonight. I just kind of came home and was thinking about, all right, I got my album selected. What do I want to say? What am I going to say about this and that? And then suddenly it was like, oh, I have a chance to do this now. So what I have seen is I've seen Christian Osario's video, which was the one that told me about this, basically informed me about it. I watched Kim over at This Is Music. I watched Steve at S&T Young. And then the next video that I had queued up was the original one. But as I said, I haven't had a chance to watch it yet. But as I understand, the challenge is to show 10 metal albums that scream metal. Well, okay. It sounded fun, and particularly watching the other three fellas whose videos I've watching theirs, it was all very inspiring. And I found it really interesting to note that all three of them chose a lot of albums from the 1980s, which is probably what I would have done in the first place, and is actually almost what I did in the first place, especially after watching Kim's video, Kim at This Is Music. He made a comment about how, before the internet, we'd go to the store, we'd look through the records, or in my case, cassette tapes, and we would look for the album covers that really stood out to us, that told us this is going to be a heavy metal album. And yeah, 1984, 85, maybe even into 1986, a lot of the albums I bought were based entirely on the album artwork. I knew nothing about the bands because the magazines I was reading, Circus Magazine, Hit Parader Magazine, they were always writing about the same bands. It was always Judas Priest, Motley Crue, Def Leppard, Iron Maiden, another story about Led Zeppelin. They were always recycling stuff, and it was very hard to find something new. A much better magazine was one out of Canada, which was called Metallion. And I think there is another Metallion magazine now, but there was one. It ran at least in the 80s. I'm not sure how long it ran, but I had the first 4 or 5 issues, and they had a lot of interesting, lesser known stuff. So yeah, I heard Kim's comments and I was thinking, yeah, I'm going to do a video on 10 album covers, 10 albums I bought based entirely on my impression of the cover. And I already had 10 albums picked out. But then at the end of his video, Kim said an interesting thing. Wouldn't it be kind of cool to see, like, if there are people from who were, heavy rock, heavy metal fans from the 70s who would choose their 10, and from the 80s and from the 2000s. And it might be interesting to see what makes an album cover that screams metal from over different generations. So I thought, yeah, that's the take I'm going to go with. I'm going to pick a couple of albums from each of the last few decades. And I actually thought to start with Led Zeppelin's debut album, because I was thinking about it, the album cover, it's the Hindenburg exploding, an airship exploding in a horrific explosion. It's black and white. And I saw a video of Glenn Kellaway not long ago where he talked about going into a record store in 1969, seeing that album and thinking, what is this? Who is Led Zeppelin? Turning it over, looking at the pictures of the guys in the back and thinking, wow, okay, this is probably going to be interesting. Bought it, took it home, played it, and right off the bat, from Good Times, Bad Times, it was just like, okay, whoa, guys, the games of the rule just changed. The bar got raised a hell of a lot. And I thought, wow, that's cool. But when I actually dug out the album and looked at it, I thought, there's a lot of empty white space on this. And one of the things I noticed was that if you want to summarize the impression of a metal album cover, in a lot of cases, maybe 90%, it's gonna be badass. That's right, a metal album cover has to have a badass feeling, at least most of the time. And a big empty white space doesn't really say badass so much. So here we go. I have picked from 1978 to 2023, and let's do it. So first up, we have from 1978, Nazareth's No Mean City. And, well, there's the backside too. Okay, so it's in plastic. It might be a bit of a glare. Here's the picture. Here's the album cover. Take a look at it. So the interesting thing about Nazareth is that they are not known as a heavy metal band as such. Well, okay, so in the 1970s, they kind of were, because there was a Circus magazine article on them that called them heavy metal from Scotland. But anyway, probably their two most famous album covers are Hair of the Dog and No Mean City. And both of them have this, really badass, mean looking characters on the cover here. So, I mean, take a look at it. There's this guy with like blades in both hands. He's got a skull-like face. He's decked out in like spiked armored helmet and got this like skull and wings. And that skull and wings has actually almost become a symbol of Nazareth. Like I see on a lot of merch that is sold online anyway. So, I mean, you're looking at this and here you go. Once again, let's take a look at the album cover. You are not going to confuse this with, for example, famous Greek songs by Theodore Montaigne. So first one, No Mean City, Nazareth. Is it a heavy album? Well, it's actually, I think, one of Nazareth's two really heavy albums, the other one being Hair of the Dog. Most of the songs on there have a pretty raw, rough, hard-hitting sound and got some pretty heavy punches in the tunes too. So next up, yeah, okay, so no surprise, it's sitting right here beside me. You can see I've got Motorhead's Overkill. I think this is also from 1978, and not a lot needs to be said about Motorhead. I mean, it's a kind of an obvious choice. Most of their album covers were pretty damn badass looking. Anyway, you've got, what's his name here? Snagglepuss? No, Snaggletooth? Something like that. You got the band here looking pretty badass as well inside. Yeah, you are not going to mistake this album cover for Kylie Minogue's disco album. That's for sure. So, albums that came out in the 1980s. I mean, 1980s was such an important year for heavy metal. First of all, it really did explode and become a big thing. It became a household name, and there was exactly an image for it. Denim, leather, long hair, even taking it to extremes with like a bullet strap belts and spiked wristbands, studded wristbands, all that kind of thing. And of course, the bands had to look mean and tough. The album covers had to look like either, barbaric gladiator types fighting dragons, or scantily clad women, or war scenes, explosions, rockets, tanks, all this kind of mean-ass looking stuff. And if there was one band that caught my attention, it was Voivod. Now, I bought their War and Pain album, again, just because of the album cover. But I think the second album, called Roar, takes it to the next level, because now we have this ghoulish, mean-looking Voivod character sitting inside an armor-plated vehicle with spikes on it and weaponry and all that. I mean, if April Wine said harder, faster, Voivod said, you betcha. Well, they probably said it in French anyway. So, another album that I just picked off the shelf in the record store just by looking at the cover was Destruction's Infernal Overkill. Now, I mean, come on. 1980s heavy metal band, nuclear explosion, fragmented, blackened skull in there, incinerating, vaporizing hand reaching up, lightning bolt strikes coming down. I mean, this is certainly heavy metal. I mean, you are not going to mistake this for Ken Carson, America's favorite campfire songs, that's for sure. Okay, moving along to the 1990s, even though there are loads of stuff we could show for the 80s, I decided to go with this album here by Asphyx from 1992. That is one pretty freaky looking album cover. This guy here looks like a priest corpse zombie type thing with a giant crucifix around there. It doesn't look like he has any arms. That is one freaky looking thing. I mean, you are not going to confuse this for Father Abraham's Smurfin' Sing Song album. Okay, next up, there are a few from the 1990s I had considered, but I realized I didn't have anything from the 2000s. And I think this album here is, I forget when it's from. I can't really see on the back either, but I think it's from the early 2000s. This is Obituary's Darkest Day, and take a look at that. What have we got here? What have we got on the album cover here anyway? We've got, again, this kind of larger image here. We've got this gladiator looking type guy, but he looks like slightly ghoulish, I guess, and he's swinging this sword and chopping this dragon-like beast. There's blood flying out everywhere. There's this gnarly looking tree. There's blood and guts all around. And this album cover is definitely not going to be mistaken for Puff the Magic Dragon. Moving along with scary looking beasts, we're going to go to 2012 with Armed to the Teeth by Stryker, a new wave of traditional heavy metal, and in the early days also some speed metal type stuff, band from, I think it's Alberta actually, in Canada. And what do we see on the album cover? Larger image here. You have got a dinosaur skeleton, looking mean enough as it is anyway, with an open mouth and rows of sharp pointed teeth, but also machine guns on its forelimbs and a machine gun pack on its back firing off bullets. What the hell? If this doesn't say badass, I mean, we've got dinosaurs, we've got teeth, we've got skeletons, we've got missiles and rockets and stuff on the back cover. There's volcanoes erupting. I mean, you are not going to mistake this for a Barney the Dinosaur album. That's for sure. Badass, I'm telling you. And there's another band. I could have mentioned several of their albums, but I'm actually going with this one here from 2018. This is Judas Priest's Firepower. I mean, look at that, man. That is just some, powerful, dangerous, deadly looking robotic type thing here. Just, firing off flamey things and totally just bursting apart, disintegrating. I don't know if it's disintegrating under its own power or if it is disintegrating as it's going down fighting. Who the hell knows? But anyway, Firepower, that is just one pretty awesome album cover. This will definitely not be confused with a cover for the soundtrack to Annie Get Your Gun, that's for sure. So, as we said, we like our gladiators and barbarians and dragons. We also like our scantily clad women. So here is Eternal Champions album Ravening Iron from 2020, I think I said it was. And we've got some really, well, okay, it's not scantily clad, it's just a shadow. She's got, everything on display here. There's also like a pile of skulls behind the throne she's on and a dragon guarding the skulls. That is definitely a metal album cover. You are not going to get it confused with Dolly Parton's Greatest Hits. Greatest Hits. Did I say that right? Anyway, whatever. One more to go. Last one here. Here's another band that always has pretty nasty, well, most of the time anyway, have pretty nasty, mean-looking, badass album covers. And a couple of people have already showed one or two of their other albums. But I'm going with 2023's album Scorched by Overkill. Check it out. Here's the larger image. You can see we have got two skulls with spines and some other batwing things twisted together here with flames all around. And that is one very mean looking album cover. You are not going to mistake this for Sonny and Cher's Look at Us. I mean, look at the album cover for Look at Us. Look at Sonny's face. What is he saying here? Hey, Cher, look at us. Look at it. Cher, they're not looking at us. No, Sonny, they're not looking at us. They're looking at me. Anyway, those are my 10 picks out of, dozens upon dozens I could have selected. But anyway, those are 10 picks that I have for album covers that scream metal. They just look mean, badass, tough, nasty, powerful, destructive, hellish, whatever. And I think that's the point. All right. Thanks everybody for watching. So link to George G's video down below, and I've got to watch that here tonight or tomorrow and let him know that I'm participating. Thanks George for coming up with this great idea. Thank you to Christian, Kim, and Steve for your great videos that inspired me in my ideas and my selections. And thanks everybody who watched. Take care. See you around in another video. Bye all.